What was the thing that made you want to start in audio production and studying the subject?
One of the things I would say that really made me most interested about audio kind of goes back to my beginnings and interest in music, I would say.
Okay.
The first album I ever owned was, and I actually ever purchased, was Jesus Freak by DC Talk.
Yeah.
So that album kind of changed me in terms of music, because up until that point, I had only, that I can remember, really listened to like kid nursery rhymes and the music that they played at church, which was all hymns.
Kids Bop.
Yeah, pretty much. So, and it was a crazy perspective flip when I heard that album for the first time. And then from there, as I moved into high school, I discovered bands like Thousand Foot Crutch and Showbread. And Showbread especially made me interested in learning about audio, because they use a whole bunch of weird techniques to get different sounds for their synthesizers, and they also played a bunch of really creepy, like, background noise. Like they lifted audio from like old, like 1940s speeches and like film recordings of like armies marching and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And all sorts of weird stuff. So that made me, that I would say is probably the factor that made me the most curious about audio, because I wanted to know how in the world they did that. Did they march 60 people into a studio and everybody marched in unison, or what?
Yep.
So I would say that's probably the biggest thing that got me curious about audio.
Okay, dope. So your first steps were just based off of an album. That's pretty cool.
Pretty much.
Did you even know where to go to start learning?
Not at all, honestly. It was something that it was just kind of a dream to me at the time. I didn't ever think that I would one day be going to college and studying it, especially because my parents kind of discouraged me doing that. They, especially my dad, one of the classic things that my dad said to me, and I'm sure some other people have heard, is you got to go to college and get into a career that you'll be able to make a living doing, that type of thing.
Sure.
And to be completely frank, audio in Grand Rapids, Michigan is not necessarily the hotbed for making a fancy living.
Not quite.
But regardless of that, it's just what I'm passionate about, and I feel called to be doing that. And I think God's going to put me where He needs to be.
What was like one of your biggest issues?
Initially, one of the biggest issues that I had was just ignorance about the subject in general. When I was probably 15 or 16, that was when I first really wanted to try doing stuff, and I thought, I can teach myself. So I had this program on my parents' computer that was in their basement. It was just a very basic recording. Like, it was just basically supposed to be for dialogue, so somebody could record like a voice memo type thing. And I found this crappy microphone from like a Windows 97 computer, and I plugged it in to the back of this computer, and I recorded myself playing guitar for a song I wrote, and I had my friend sing with me for it, and it was just terrible. And that was kind of when I realized, man, this is hard, and it actually takes some skill. And then I ended up going to Grand Rapids Community College. They have a recording technology program there, and that's where I would say I really cut my teeth, because they taught me about Pro Tools and all basically the other basic knowledge that you need to be able to produce music and record.
Yeah, dope. You got any advice for people starting off? Like, what were ways that you overcame your ignorance, and the ways that you started to learn, like really learn about the subject? Yeah,
one of the biggest things that I would recommend is find somebody who's at a similar level as you, and then also somebody who can mentor you. That was one of the things that I found the most helpful. I had a buddy when I was at GRCC. His name was Carl. He and I were both very naive to how things worked. So we talked a lot, and we shared ideas and bounced things off each other. But then additionally, there were a couple of students that were older than us that we talked to, and they kind of helped, take you by the hand and guide you type thing, in addition to the stuff that we were learning from our professors.
Alrighty. Well, Greg, thanks for talking. I'm glad that you could be on my wonderful blog.
No problem, man. It's a pleasure.